Hello, I'm Nathan Franco, and in this video I'll be discussing D-Day, the events that led up to it, where it took place, and why it's important. It all started with World War II when Hitler rose to power and planned to imperialize all of Europe, who then became the greatest and most significant key to the planning of D-Day. Hitler knew that alone he could not restore Germany's former glory, so around the 1930s, Germany, Italy, and Japan led a group of nations called the Axis. The leaders of these countries were nationalistic dictators who only cared about the well-being of their country. In Germany, the rise of the Nazi Party and its leader, Adolf Hitler, promised to take revenge on the countries that defeated them in the First World War and make Germany the most powerful country in the world. In Italy, Benito Mussolini, known as the Il Duce, became the leader of the Fascist Party, in which he promised to bring law and order to the country and help solve its economic problems. In Japan, invasion in Manchuria and an attack on China allowed him to further expand into Southeast Asia. But not everyone agreed to the concept of absolute power, so in self-defense, the Allies' powers were formed. The Allies were made of a total of 50 countries, who were led by Great Britain, the Soviet Union, France, and the United States. On September 30, 1938, Great Britain and France signed an agreement with Germany, which gave Germany the right to take over Sudetenland, a part of Czechoslovakia. The two Allies hoped it would satisfy Hitler and keep them out the war. But the agreement was broken when Germany not only invaded Sudetenland, but took control of all of Czechoslovakia. It was clear that Germany's next target would be Poland, so Great Britain and France made a promise to help Poland if it were attacked. In August 1939, Germany made an agreement with the Soviet Union in which they promised not to attack each other. Germany thought that this agreement would help them avoid a fight on two fronts. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland and World War II had begun. In 1930, Germany starts off the war by invading France, Belgium, Poland, and Denmark. These countries were rapidly defeated by Germany due to the speed of the attacks. In August through May of 1940, Germany conducts a series of heavy bombing attacks on Britain's cities. The next year, in 1941, Germany invades former ally of the Soviet Union, which consequently becomes Britain's ally. This starts the bloody struggle on the Eastern Front, which continues until the end of the war in 1945. In the end of 1941, on December 7th, Japan attacks the U.S. at Pearl Harbor, inflicting serious damage and causing the U.S. to join the war on the Allied side. Germany then declares war on the U.S. At the Washington Conference, the U.S. agrees that with Britain on a strategy called Europe First, in which they would focus on the defeat of Germany before turning to deal with Japan. This begins the train of events that would lead up to D-Day. In early April of 1942, the buildup of U.S. forces in Britain called Operation Valerio begins in preparation for D-Day. In August, the Allied raid on French coastal town of Dieppe, using mainly Canadian troops, is left with many casualties. This raid illustrated how difficult the Allied invasion of Europe would be. The next year, on January 1943, the Casablanca Conference, the Allies agreed to the conditions are not right for D-Day to take place in 1943. Instead, the Allies decided to capture Sicily to form an Anglo-American staff to begin the detailed planning for D-Day. The Allied landings in Sicily, mainland Italy, respectively led the Italian surrender and opened a new front in Europe. The British, American, and Soviet leaders, Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and Joseph Stalin, meet together for the first time at the Inherent Conference. Stalin urgently wants to know when the Allies will be landing in France. To aid the Soviet armies fighting on the Eastern Front, Churchill will tell Roosevelt that he planned the date is May 1944. On January 1944, the planning of D-Day takes on a greater urgency. They start revising the draft plans in order to perfect the upcoming operation. They decide that the target day for D-Day should be moved to the 1st of May to the 31st of May to allow for more time preparations. They added to the plan that they should be landing on the beaches in Normandy. On February, the Allied air forces began to strike German cities with a series of heavy raids. German fighter aircraft defend against these attacks, and they both have quite a bit of casualties. But the deaths of airmen won't be a trouble for the Allies as much as the Germans. As a result of this, by the time of D-Day, the German Air Force will not be strong enough to fight the Allied air landings in France. 1 month before D-Day, the Allied powers began to load all equipment, warcraft, and troops onto ships. On June 2nd, the first day, the Allied powers, the first part of the invasion fleet sets out for Normandy. They arrive off the Normandy coast the next day. They will stay there submerged until D-Day, when they will surface to guide the first Allied craft onto Juneau and Sword beaches. On June 5th, about 11 p.m., the British and American airborne troops begin taking off from bases in England. They will be the first Allied soldiers to land in Normandy by glider and parachute in the early hours of the following morning. Actual D-Day. The first troops land from the air after midnight on June 6, 1944. Their paratroopers were to jump behind enemy lines to destroy key targets and capture bridges in order to maintain invasion force to land on the beach. Thousands of dummies were also dropped in order to draw fire and confuse enemy. These decoys were deception plans called Operation Bodyguard. In the next stage of the battle, thousands of planes dropped bombs on German stealth vans. Soon after, warships began to bomb the beaches from the water. The Allied forces, decreasing the force of the enemy's defenses, for sure will make it easier for them to successfully get all the equipment ashore. Soon the invasion force of 6,000 ships carrying troops, weapons, tanks, and equipment approached the beaches of Normandy. A few hours later, more ships of Allies were to land on other beaches of the coast of Normandy. The landings of Gold, Juneau, Sword, Utah Beach were successful. The landing of Omaha Beach was the bloodiest of the D-Day beaches, with roughly 2,400 U.S. troops turning up dead, wounded, or missing. Rough surf wreaked havoc with Allied landing craft, and only 2 of 29 amphibious tanks launched at sea managed to reach shore. U.S. infantrymen in the initial waves of the attack were then gunned down by mass German machine gun fire. The carnage became so severe that the U.S. Lieutenant General Omar Bardley considered abandoning the entire operation. Slowly but surely, however, his men began making it across the beach to relative safety of the seawall at the foot of the bluffs and then opened the bluffs themselves. Assistance came from the whole group of Army Rangers who scaled a massive foreland between Omaha and Utah to take out artillery pieces, and from U.S. warships that moved perilously close to shore to fire shells at the government's fortifications. By nightfall, the Americans had fired out a tenuous toehold about 1.5 miles deep. In the end, the U.S. troops won the Battle of Omaha Beach with relatively few number of troops. By the end of D-Day, over 1,500,000 troops had landed in Normandy. They pushed their way inland, allowing more troops to land over the next several days. By June 17th, over 500,000 Allied troops had arrived, and they began to push Germans out of France. After D-Day, on August 25th, Paris is liberated from German control. On April 40th of 1945, Hitler commits suicide when he no longer sees any hope to advance after the loss. 1 month later, Germany surrenders to the Allies. By the end of the year, the U.S. strikes Japan in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On September 2nd of 1945, Japan surrenders to the Allies and thus ending World War II. The overall military operation was called Operation Overlord, and the actual landings of Normandy were called Operation Neptune. Famously known as D-Day or the invasion of Normandy, is important to World War II. If this operation would have never taken place, the world would have begun in hands of Germany. Luckily for us, D-Day took place and wiped out. That would have been an ugly result of World War II. The casualties of the invasion was 425,000. The lives lost were sacrificed for our freedom, and that's why we stand here today. In conclusion, D-Day became the great turning point of World War II and the greatest land and sea operation in history.